an original narrative, created especially for Shadows of Love. The rain fell like judgment on Ava's shoulders as she stood abandoned in the hospital parking lot, mascara streaking down her cheeks, while her husband's taillights disappeared into the storm. She never expected the wrong black sedan would save her that night, or that the man inside, Dominic Morello, pressing a handkerchief to his bleeding side with unnerving calm, would look at her with more concern than the husband who just left her there to learn a lesson. His voice was low when he asked if she needed help, dangerous in its gentleness, and something in Ava recognized the crossroads before her. Step back into the rain and the life she knew, or slide into the leather seat beside the city's most feared man who somehow made her feel safer than she had in years. You can wait in the car, or you can walk home, Ava. Your choice. Dylan's voice was ice cold as he gripped the steering wheel, refusing to look at her. Ava stared at her husband of 3 years, searching for any trace of the man she'd married. It's pouring rain, and we're 20 miles from home. You can't be serious. Maybe next time you'll think before questioning me in front of Dr. Winters. His jaw clenched. I told you I had that investment handled. I only mentioned that the pediatric wing needed. You made me look like I couldn't provide. Dylan slammed his palm against the wheel. Get out. Call an Uber. The December rain hammered the hospital parking garage roof like artillery fire. Ava's thin scrubs offered no protection against the winter chill. Dylan, please. It's almost midnight. His eyes, once warm brown, now flat with contempt, finally met hers. Then you'd better start walking. The door lock clicked open. A choice that wasn't a choice. Ava stepped out, dignity crumbling as the first drops hit her face. The sedan peeled away before she could close the door properly, leaving her alone in the near-empty parking garage. She fumbled for her phone with trembling fingers, trying to shield the screen from rain as she stepped toward the exit. The rideshare app showed a 15-minute wait. 15 minutes in the freezing December downpour. 3 years of marriage, dissolving like watercolor in the rain. 3 years of Dylan's increasingly erratic behavior, the unexplained absences, the money troubles he refused to discuss, and now this. Abandonment as punishment for daring to speak. Ava wiped her eyes, unsure if it was rain or tears streaking her face. The pediatric nurse who comforted frightened children all day couldn't even comfort herself. A black sedan pulled into the pickup zone. Relief flooded through her. The driver had arrived early. She rushed forward, yanking open the back door without checking the license plate. Thank you for. The words died in her throat. This wasn't her ride. A man sat in the back seat, one hand pressed to his side. Dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that assessed her with unnerving calculation. I believe you have the wrong car, he said, voice steady despite the blood seeping between his fingers. You're hurt, Ava said automatically, nurse instincts overriding fear. That's a gunshot wound. A slight raise of his eyebrow. Observant. I should call an ambulance. No. The word was quiet but absolute. Close the door. I'm sorry for the confusion. Ava started to back away, but his next words stopped her. You're soaked and crying. His observation carried no judgment, just certainty. Someone left you here. Ava froze, suddenly aware of how she must look. Drenched scrubs, smeared makeup, obvious distress. Marco. The man addressed his driver without taking his eyes off her. This woman needs a ride. Sir, protocol, the driver began, is suspended. Get in, he told Ava, unless you prefer pneumonia. Common sense screamed to walk away, but the rain was turning to sleet. Her ride was still 10 minutes away, and this stranger with a bullet wound somehow felt less dangerous than the night. You need medical attention, she said, sliding into the seat beside him. And you need dry clothes. He handed her a handkerchief, monogrammed DM, for her tears. We can help each other. The door closed behind her with quiet finality, sealing her fate. Pressure here, Ava instructed, guiding the man's hand back to his wound as the sedan glided through rain-slicked streets. Who are you? Someone who values discretion. His breathing remained controlled, despite the blood staining his tailored shirt. The hospital would ask questions neither of us wants to answer. Lightning illuminated his face, angular, severe, handsome, in a way that suggested danger rather than beauty. Recognition hit her like a physical blow. You're Dominic Morello. Everyone in the city knew that name. The businessman whose enterprises stretched from legitimate real estate to whispered territories no one discussed openly. The man whose enemies had a habit of disappearing. He studied her with new interest. And you are? Ava Hart, pediatric nurse at Mercy General. She swallowed hard. Look, I appreciate the ride, but I should. Your husband, Dominic interrupted, has a gambling problem, Mrs. Hart. The world tilted beneath her. How do you? Dylan Hart, accountant, owes considerable sums to people who don't forgive debts. His voice remained conversational, as if discussing the weather. Not to me, to the Russians. Ava's mouth went dry. That's impossible. Dylan doesn't. Sergei Volkov runs the tables your husband frequents. Volkov's operation has been trying to gain access to certain hospital records, pediatric surgery schedules, specifically. The sedan turned onto a private road lined with security cameras. Why are you telling me this? Ava whispered. Because the man who shot me works for Volkov. Dominic's gaze was steady, assessing. And your husband leaving you stranded at the hospital tonight wasn't a coincidence. They passed through wrought iron gates that closed silently behind them. A sprawling estate emerged through the rain, modern architecture, glass and stone, illuminated security perimeter. This is kidnapping, Ava said, panic rising. This is protection. Dominic's expression softened fractionally. You're free to leave once the storm passes. But first, let me show you something. Inside, the mansion was minimalist elegance, all clean lines and muted colors. Dominic led her to a study where a laptop waited. Despite his injury, he moved with fluid grace, only the tightness around his eyes betraying pain. Your hospital access credentials were used last Tuesday at 3 a.m. He pulled up security footage showing a figure at a computer terminal. That's not you. Ava leaned closer. That's the administrative wing. Those terminals access patient records, including surgery schedules. Dominic pulled up another screen. Bank transfers to an offshore account in Dylan's name. Your husband has been selling access. The room spun. Ava gripped the desk for support. Why would he? Debt, fear, greed. Dominic shrugged. The usual reasons men betray their principles. A woman appeared at the door. Elegant, middle-aged, with watchful eyes. The doctor is here, Mr. Morello. Thank you, Elena. Show Mrs. Hart to the guest suite afterward. She'll need dry clothes. I'm not staying, Ava protested. Dominic's smile didn't reach his eyes. The storm is worsening. Roads are flooding, and Volkov's men are undoubtedly watching your home, wondering why your husband returned alone. You can't expect me to believe. I expect nothing. I'm offering sanctuary while you process the truth. He gestured to the screens. Take your time. The evidence isn't going anywhere. As if punctuating his words, thunder cracked overhead. The mansion's lights flickered momentarily. The storm always reveals what darkness hides, Mrs. Hart. Dominic's voice softened. Sometimes we're safer in the devil's house than in the one we built on lies. Elena touched Ava's arm gently. Come, dear. Let's find you something warm while the doctor tends to Mr. Morello. Ava followed, numb with revelation. The foundations of her life crumbling like sand beneath a rising tide. Morning light filtered through bulletproof glass, casting geometric patterns across Ava's borrowed clothes. Silk pajamas that whispered against her skin, too intimate for comfort. She'd slept fitfully in the guest suite, haunted by dreams of Dylan's face, transforming into something unrecognizable. 3 knocks at the door. Elena entered with a breakfast tray and fresh clothes. Mr. Morello thought these might fit, she said, laying out jeans and a sweater. He'd like to speak with you when you're ready. How is his wound? Ava asked automatically. Healing. The doctor said your quick assessment helped. Elena's eyes, kind but evaluating, studied Ava. He rarely brings outsiders here. I'm not here by choice. Few choices are as simple as they seem. Elena adjusted the curtains. The staff entrance code is 4729, should you wish to leave. But I wouldn't recommend walking into that particular storm unprepared. After breakfast, Ava found Dominic in a glass-walled office overlooking manicured grounds. He stood at the window, one hand absently touching his bandaged side. The morning light softened his features, making him seem almost human. You should be resting, she said. He turned, a hint of amusement crossing his face. The nurse emerges. Old habits. Ava crossed her arms. I need to go home. To what? Dominic gestured to a chair. Please sit. To my life, my job. She remained standing. Whatever Dylan's done. What Dylan's done, Dominic interrupted gently, is sell pediatric surgery schedules to the Russian Mafia. Do you understand what that means? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. They're using them to target someone, Ava whispered, the realization dawning. A child. The daughter of Judge Alessandra Santos. Scheduled for heart surgery next week. Dominic's expression darkened. Judge Santos recently approved warrants against Volkov's operation. Horror washed over Ava. They wouldn't harm a child. They wouldn't have to. Just the threat would be enough to make the judge reconsider her position. Dominic finally sat, wincing slightly. Your husband has placed you in an impossible situation. Why do you care? This isn't your concern. Judge Santos is under my protection. His gaze was steady. And now, by extension, so are you. Something in his voice, not threat but certainty, sent a shiver down Ava's spine. I don't need protection. I need the truth. The truth. Dominic leaned forward. The truth is your husband sold you out the moment Volkov's men approached him. The truth is you're safer in this house of shadows than in your own home. Before Ava could respond, Dominic's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression hardening. We have a situation, he said to someone on the other end. Secure the perimeter. What's happening? Ava asked, tension coiling in her stomach. Dominic moved to a security panel, entering a code. Steel shutters began descending over the windows. It seems Volkov has discovered your location. His voice remained calm, but his posture had changed, predatory, alert, and he's decided to pay us a visit. As if on cue, the distant sound of car engines rumbled beyond the gates. Stay close to me, Dominic said, reaching for her hand with unexpected gentleness. Whatever happens next, remember one thing. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours, Ava whispered. His eyes, dark and certain, met hers. For now, in this house against them, you are. The first explosion hit the east gate at 11:42 p.m. Ava jolted awake as security alarms wailed throughout the mansion. Footsteps pounded down hallways. Voices shouted coded phrases she couldn't understand. She'd barely pulled on jeans and a sweater when her bedroom door burst open. Dominic stood there, gun in hand, face carved from stone. We need to move. Now. What's happening? She asked, heart hammering against her ribs. Volkov's men breached the perimeter. He handed her a small backpack. Essentials. Follow me and stay silent. The hallway was controlled chaos, security personnel moving with practiced efficiency, weapons drawn. Through windows, Ava glimpsed muzzle flashes in the darkness, like deadly fireflies. Dominic ordered suddenly, pulling her against the wall as gunfire shattered a nearby window. Glass rained around them, catching in her hair. His body shielded hers, warm and solid. Are you hit? He asked, his breath against her ear. No, she whispered, acutely aware of his proximity, the scent of sandalwood and gunpowder. They moved again, descending a hidden staircase behind a bookshelf in the library. The passage was narrow, forcing them close together. Dominic's wounded side pressed against her as they descended, but he showed no sign of discomfort. Where are we going? Ava asked. Safe room. Reinforced steel, independent ventilation, communications, and supplies. The passage opened into a bunker-like space, sparse but functional, with monitors showing camera feeds from around the property. Most displayed static or chaos. One showed flames consuming the garage. They came prepared, Dominic muttered, securing the door behind them. This is more than a warning. They're here for me, aren't they? The realization settled like ice in Ava's stomach. Dominic's eyes met hers, neither confirming nor denying. They're here because Volkov is a problem I should have solved long ago. He moved to a communications panel, speaking rapidly into a microphone. Orders, contingencies, extraction protocols. The language of a man accustomed to war. Ava sank onto a cot, reality crashing over her. People are dying because of me. People are dying because of choices, theirs and mine. Dominic knelt before her, unexpected gentleness in his gesture. None of this is your doing. But Dylan made his choice when he sold those schedules. Dominic's voice hardened. When he left you in that parking lot, knowing what would follow, a terrible thought struck her. Did you know I'd be there? At the hospital, something flickered in his eyes. Respect, perhaps. I knew Volkov's men would be watching. I didn't know you'd be abandoned. But you recognized me. Yes. No elaboration, just truth. Above them, the sounds of gunfire intensified, then gradually faded. Dominic's phone buzzed with updates. His expression revealed nothing, but his shoulders relaxed marginally. My men have repelled the initial assault. Volkov's forces are retreating. He checked the monitors. Dawn in 3 hours. We'll reassess then. Ava huddled under a blanket, exhaustion and adrenaline warring in her system. Dominic sat across from her, cleaning his gun with practiced movements. Try to rest, he said, not looking up. Tomorrow will demand clarity. How can you be so calm? His hand stilled. This isn't my first siege, Ava. The use of her first name, intimate, unguarded, hung between them. Morning came with eerie silence. The monitors showed smoldering debris, but no movement. Dominic's phone remained active with reports and commands. It's over, Ava asked cautiously. For now. Dominic unlocked the safe room door. They've withdrawn to regroup. As they emerged, Elena appeared, face tight with concern. Sir, this was slipped under the east door during the firefight. She handed Dominic a manila envelope. He opened it, expression darkening as he examined the contents. What is it? Ava asked. Wordlessly, he handed her the envelope. Inside was a photograph. Dylan, beaten and bound to a chair, holding today's newspaper. Blood trickled from his split lip. His eyes were wide with terror. A note accompanied the image, typed in stark black letters. Trade the nurse for the husband. 1 hour. Port Warehouse 17. Come alone. Ava's knees buckled. Dominic caught her before she hit the floor, his arms strong around her waist. They have Dylan, she whispered. Yes. Dominic's voice was grim. And now we have a choice to make. I have to go, Ava said, staring at the photograph. I can't let them kill him. Dominic's study felt too small, too close. Dawn light filtered through bulletproof glass, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Outside, his security team cleared debris from the night's attack. If you go, they'll kill you both. Dominic's voice was quiet, matter of fact. Volkov doesn't leave witnesses. He's my husband. He's also the man who sold pediatric surgery schedules to criminals. Dominic moved to stand before her, close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. The man who left you in that parking lot knowing what might follow. Ava's hands trembled. There must be another way. There is. Dominic placed a thumb drive on the desk between them. This contains all the evidence of Volkov's operation. Money laundering, extortion, the hospital breach, enough to destroy him. Why haven't you used it? Because evidence requires witnesses. Witnesses who survive long enough to testify. His gaze was steady. I've been building this case for months. Understanding dawned. You need Judge Santos. And she needs her daughter to survive surgery without Volkov's interference. Dominic leaned against the desk, wincing slightly at the pull on his wound. Your husband's betrayal accelerated their timeline. So what do? We set a trap. Not at the warehouse. That's suicide. We draw them to ground of our choosing. And Dylan? Something flickered across Dominic's face. Not quite pity. Not quite contempt. We try to extract him. But I won't lie to you, Ava. His chances are slim. The honesty, brutal as it was, steadied her. No false promises. No empty reassurances. Tell me the plan. For the next hour, they worked side by side, Dominic outlining security protocols, while Ava provided insights on hospital access points and procedures. Their hands brushed occasionally over maps and diagrams, each contact sending an unwelcome spark through her veins. We'll need to secure the hospital records properly, Ava said, circling a section on the blueprint. Change all access codes. Implement verification protocols, already in motion. My tech team is coordinating with hospital security. Dominic studied her face. You're remarkably calm for someone whose world collapsed yesterday. I'm a pediatric nurse. We compartmentalize. She met his gaze. The children come first. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps even admiration. The warehouse meeting is a trap, he continued, refocusing. But we can use their expectation against them. They'll be watching for my car, expecting you inside. A decoy. Several, meanwhile, will be approaching from the water. He indicated the harbor on the map. My people will secure the perimeter while we extract your husband. And if it goes wrong, Dominic's hand covered hers, warm and steady. Then I get you out, whatever the cost. The promise hung between them, weighted with implications neither was ready to acknowledge. Why? Ava asked, voice barely audible. Why risk everything for a stranger? You stopped being a stranger the moment you tried to help me with a bullet wound. His thumb traced a gentle circle on her wrist. Some debts can't be measured, Ava. She should have pulled away. Should have remembered Dylan. Remembered who Dominic was, what he represented. Instead, she turned her hand, fingers intertwining with his. If we do this, she whispered, if we survive this, what happens after? That depends on what truths you're prepared to face. His eyes held hers, unflinching. And whether you can live with them. In that moment, with dawn breaking over a world forever changed, Ava made her choice, not for Dylan, not even for herself, but the children whose safety hung in the balance. Let's end this, she said. All of it. The port stank of salt, rust, and diesel, as rain pounded the metal roofs of abandoned warehouses. Ava huddled in the bow of a small boat, Dominic's jacket draped over her shoulders, watching the warehouse grow larger through sheets of rain. Remember, Dominic said quietly beside her. Stay behind me. If I say run, you run, no questions. His men had already secured positions around the perimeter. Invisible sentinels in the storm. 3 decoy vehicles had departed the estate earlier, each following different routes to draw attention away from the water approach. The boat glided silently to a rusted ladder leading to a loading dock. Dominic went first, then helped Ava up, his hand strong and sure around her waist. The momentary contact sent an inappropriate flutter through her stomach. This way, he murmured, leading her through a service entrance. Inside, the warehouse was a cathedral of shadows, towering metal shelves, forgotten crates, the constant drumming of rain on the roof. Their footsteps echoed, despite their caution. Voices drifted from the central area. Dominic signaled for Ava to wait, then moved forward with predatory grace, gun drawn. She pressed herself against a stack of crates, heart hammering. Morello. A heavily accented voice carried through the cavernous space. I was beginning to think you'd send flowers instead. Volkov. Dominic's voice betrayed nothing. I see punctuality isn't your strong suit. Ava inched forward, peering around the edge of a container. In the center of the warehouse, illuminated by a single industrial light, stood a group of men. At their center was Sergei Volkov, short, balding, with cold eyes and an expensive suit. Beside him, Dylan knelt on the concrete, hands bound, face bruised. Where is the nurse? Volkov demanded. Safe, unlike your men at my estate. Dominic circled slowly, keeping all of Volkov's guards in view. You lost good soldiers for nothing. Not nothing. Information has value. Volkov smiled thinly. For instance, I now know exactly how many men you have positioned outside. 7. I know which of your security codes were compromised. And I know the nurse means something to you, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. Dylan's head jerked up at that, confusion crossing his battered face. You talk too much, Sergei. Dominic's voice was almost friendly. It's always been your weakness, and yours is sentimentality. The great Dominic Morello, protector of judges and nurses. Volkov kicked Dylan casually. This one told us everything, about the hospital records, about Judge Santos, about his wife's access codes. Ava's breath caught. Everything. Let him go, Dominic said. Your quarrel is with me. My quarrel is with anyone who interferes with business. Volkov gestured, and one of his men pressed a gun to Dylan's head. The nurse now or he dies. Ava. Dylan's voice cracked. Ava, I'm sorry. I didn't know what they'd do. The desperation in his voice pulled at her. Despite everything, he was still her husband. Before she could think, Ava stepped from behind the crates. I'm here. Ava, no. Dominic's face showed the first real emotion she'd seen. Raw alarm. Well, well. Volkov smiled. The loyal wife arrives. Let him go, Ava said, voice steadier than she felt. I'm the one with hospital access. Ava, get back, Dominic ordered. But she was already walking forward. Touching, Volkov said, but unnecessary. Your husband already gave us what we needed. He nodded to his men. Kill them all. Everything happened at once. Gunfire erupted from the rafters. Dominic's men, positioned where Volkov hadn't thought to look. Dominic lunged, tackling Ava behind a concrete pillar as bullets sprayed around them. I told you to stay back. Shielding her with his body, Dylan is not who you think. Dominic's eyes bored into hers. Listen to me. He didn't just sell schedules. He doctored records, created false appointments, manipulated medication orders. The world tilted beneath her. What? Children, Ava. He endangered children for money, across the warehouse, amid the chaos of gunfire and shouting. Dylan had broken free. But instead of running toward them, he was scrambling toward Volkov, reaching for something the Russian held, a flash drive. The evidence, Dylan screamed over the gunfire. Give it to me, you promised. Volkov's response was a single gunshot. Dylan crumpled, the flash drive falling from Volkov's hand as return fire from above struck the Russian. No. Ava tried to run forward, but Dominic held her back. It's too late, he said, voice gentle despite the chaos. It was always too late. As the gunfire faded, the truth lay bleeding on the warehouse floor. The safe house overlooked the bay, isolated and secure. Ava sat on the balcony, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, watching waves crash against rocks below. 3 days since the warehouse. 3 days since she'd watched her husband die, reaching for evidence of his own crimes. The sliding door opened behind her. Dominic stepped out, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He'd been giving her space, respecting the magnitude of her grief, not for the man Dylan had become, but for the man she'd thought she married. The hospital security upgrades are complete, he said, offering her a mug. New protocols, verification systems, encrypted patient records. Ava accepted the tea, their fingers brushing briefly, and Judge Santos. Her daughter's surgery has been rescheduled with a completely new team. My people will provide security until Volkov's remaining network is dismantled. He sat beside her, close enough for comfort, but maintaining a careful distance. The wound in his side was healing well. She'd checked it herself yesterday. A moment of clinical intimacy that had left them both unsettled. The police report lists Dylan as a victim, Dominic continued. His involvement with Volkov remains confidential. Your reputation is intact. My reputation, Ava laughed hollowly. I didn't even know my husband. Few of us are truly known, even to those closest to us. She studied his profile against the fading light. And you? Are you known to anyone, Dominic? Something vulnerable flickered across his face. Parts of me, never the whole. The honesty disarmed her. This dangerous man who controlled the city's shadows, who orchestrated violence with the same precision he showed pouring tea, was offering a truth few ever received. I need to see it, she said suddenly. All of it. The evidence against Dylan. Dominic hesitated. Are you certain? Some truths can't be unlearned. I lived a lie for 3 years. I deserve the truth, however ugly. He nodded once, then disappeared inside. When he returned, he carried a laptop. For an hour, Ava sifted through Dylan's betrayal, altered medical records, falsified appointments, diverted medications. Children whose care had been compromised for profit. Her husband's signature on documents that could have resulted in tragedy. He was laundering money through the hospital foundation, Dominic explained gently, using pediatric surgery schedules to create leverage against families connected to law enforcement. Tears streamed down Ava's face, but she didn't look away, not even when she found notes in Dylan's handwriting about her own access codes, her schedule, her routines. He was going to frame me, she whispered, if things went wrong. Yes. Dominic closed the laptop. I'm sorry. Ava stood abruptly, moving to the balcony rail. The wind whipped her hair, salt spray stinging her cheeks. What happens now? She asked, not turning around. Do I just go back to my life? Pretend none of this happened. She felt him behind her, not touching, but present. You have options, a new identity, a fresh start somewhere safe. Running, living, he corrected, free from the shadow of his choices. Ava turned to face him. And if I don't want to run, if I want to stay and fix what he broke? Something kindled in Dominic's eyes. Respect, admiration, perhaps something deeper. Then you'll have whatever resources you need. His voice softened. And whatever protection I can provide. No lies, Ava said, meeting his gaze. No empty promises. If I stay, if I accept your help, I need truth between us. Complete truth. Dominic stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him against the evening chill. Complete truth, he agreed. Beginning now. The city changed in the weeks following the warehouse confrontation. Volkov's organization fractured, its leadership decimated, territory shifted, new alliances formed. And through it all, Dominic Morello moved like a shadow, consolidating power with quiet efficiency. Ava watched it unfold from a careful distance, rebuilding her life piece by piece. She returned to the hospital with a cover story about Dylan's tragic accident and threw herself into implementing the new security protocols. Her colleagues noticed the change in her, a new gravity, a sharper edge, but attributed it to widowhood. Only at night, in the solitude of the apartment Dominic had secured for her, did she allow herself to acknowledge how fundamentally she had transformed. The knock on her door came just after midnight. She knew who it was before opening it. "You shouldn't be here," she said as Dominic stepped inside. "People will talk. People always talk." He looked tired, the weight of his war evident in the shadows beneath his eyes. "We have a problem." Ava led him to the kitchen table where papers were spread out, patient records, security logs, access timestamps. "I know," she said. "Someone's still accessing pediatric records." Surprise flickered across his face. "You found it too." "I've been monitoring the system. There's a pattern. Always between 2 and 4 a.m., always targeting specific patients. Children of people connected to the DA's office," Dominic confirmed. "Volkov's remaining lieutenants are trying to rebuild leverage." "But how?" "We changed all the access codes, implemented verification protocols." "Which means the breach is coming from inside." Dominic's expression darkened. "Someone with legitimate access." The implication hung between them. A traitor in the hospital, or worse, in Dominic's organization. "We need to identify them," Ava said. "Set a trap. Too risky. If they realize we're onto them, they'll accelerate their timeline." Ava straightened. "Decision made. I'll do it." "Do what exactly?" "Infiltrate the records room. Tonight. Monitor who accesses the system." She met his concerned gaze. "This is my domain, Dominic. I know the hospital better than anyone. It's too dangerous." "More dangerous than a warehouse full of armed men." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm not asking permission." Something shifted in his expression. Pride mingled with worry. "At least let me provide backup. Your presence would only draw attention. I need to move invisibly." Ava touched his arm gently. "Trust me to handle this part." The hospital corridors were eerily silent at 1:30 a.m. Ava moved with confidence, her nurse's ID granting access to restricted areas. She'd chosen her hiding place carefully. A supply closet with a clear view of the records room door. At 2:17 a.m., her patience was rewarded. A figure in scrubs approached, looking carefully in both directions before swiping an access card. Ava recognized her immediately. Melissa Chen, administrative assistant to the chief of surgery. With steady hands, Ava took photos with her phone, documenting as Melissa accessed specific files and inserted a thumb drive into the computer. When Melissa finally left, Ava waited 10 minutes before following. Instead of confronting her, she tracked her movements through the hospital to an emergency exit where a car waited. The driver's silhouette was unmistakable. Victor, one of Volkov's surviving lieutenants. Ava retreated silently, evidence secured. By dawn, she was in Dominic's study, presenting her findings. "She's been working with them for months," Dominic concluded, reviewing the photos. "Probably recruited through financial pressure." "What happens to her?" Ava asked. "That depends." Dominic studied her face. "What would you have me do?" The question wasn't casual. He was offering her a choice, justice or vengeance, mercy or punishment. "We need her testimony," Ava said finally. "And we need to understand how deep this goes." Dominic nodded, something like relief crossing his features. "Then we proceed carefully. Build a case that protects the innocent, and the children will never be threatened again." His voice hardened with certainty. "I promise you that." In the gray morning light, their hands found each other across the table, a silent pact between unlikely allies. The chapel stood empty at midnight, a sanctuary of shadows and silence. Ava slipped inside, seeking solace in its ancient peace. Candles flickered at the altar, casting long fingers of light through stained glass. She hadn't prayed since Dylan's funeral. a hollow ceremony for a man she'd never truly known. But tonight, with Melissa Chen in protective custody, and the case against Volkov's remaining network building, she needed something sacred to anchor her. The door opened behind her. Ava didn't turn. She knew his footsteps by now. "How did you find me?" she asked as Dominic slid into the pew beside her. "Elena mentioned you asked about quiet places." His voice was soft, respectful of the space. "I thought you might be here." Candlelight softened his features, transforming the dangerous man into something almost vulnerable. He looked out of place among the saints and angels, yet somehow fitting, a shadow seeking light. "The DA has agreed to witness protection for Melissa," he said after a moment, "in exchange for her testimony against Volkov's organization. And Victor? In custody, singing like a choir boy." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Your evidence was compelling." Silence settled between them, comfortable yet charged with unspoken truths. "Why are you really here, Dominic?" Ava finally asked. He studied the flickering candles, gathering thoughts. "To confess, I'm not a priest. No. You're something far more dangerous." His eyes met hers. "Someone whose good opinion I've come to value." The admission hung between them, weighted with implications neither had been ready to face. "What would you confess?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "That I've broken my own code." His fingers traced patterns on the wooden pew. "I've always separated business from personal. Never allowed emotion to cloud judgment." He paused. "Until you." Ava's heart quickened. "What does that mean?" "It means I diverted resources to protect you that should have been deployed elsewhere. It means I've made decisions based on your safety, rather than strategic advantage." His voice roughened. "It means I compromised everything I built because I couldn't bear the thought of you in danger." The raw honesty stripped away pretense, leaving only truth between them. "If you want my trust," Ava said carefully, "there can be no dark zones, no territories where truth doesn't reach, even if that truth is ugly. Especially then." Dominic shifted to face her fully, candlelight casting half his face in shadow. "I've killed men, Ava. Ordered deaths. Built an empire on fear and control. I know what you are. Do you?" His voice gentled. "Sometimes I wonder if you see something in me that isn't there." Ava reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek. "I see exactly who you are. A man of violence and control, yes, but also a man who protects what matters, who keeps his word, who values truth." He caught her hand, pressing it more firmly against his face. "And if I told you I want more than your trust, that I want things I have no right to ask for?" The question trembled between them, dangerous, exhilarating. "Then I would say we're both standing at a crossroads." Ava leaned closer, her breath mingling with his. "You can choose control, or you can choose redemption, but you can't have both." In the sacred silence of the chapel, surrounded by flickering candles and ancient promises, Dominic Morello made his choice. He closed the distance between them, his lips finding hers with gentle certainty, a kiss of confession, of absolution, of beginning. Rain fell in silver sheets, turning the harbor lights into watery stars. The abandoned bridge connecting the port's eastern and western terminals stood isolated, a perfect neutral ground for the final confrontation. Dominic's car pulled to a stop at the eastern approach. Through rain-streaked windows, Ava could see vehicles at the opposite end, the last of Volkov's lieutenants, desperate and cornered. "You don't have to be here," Dominic said, his hand covering hers. "This isn't your fight." "Everything about this is my fight." Ava met his gaze steadily. "Those children were my patients. That hospital is my responsibility." In the week since their moment in the chapel, something had shifted between them. Boundaries redrawn, truths acknowledged. Not quite a relationship, but a partnership forged in shared purpose. "Stay behind me," he said. "Not an order, but a request. Please." They stepped into the rain, Dominic's security team fanning out around them. At the center of the bridge, a table had been set up, protected from the downpour by a temporary canopy. Waiting there was Victor, recently released from custody as part of the arrangement, and 3 armed men. "Cutting it close, Morello," Victor called as they approached. "We were about to leave with our insurance policy." By insurance policy, he meant Dylan's ledger, the one containing detailed records of hospital breaches, patient information, and criminal contacts. The final piece of evidence that could destroy what remained of Volkov's network. "Where is it?" Dominic asked, voice carrying over the rain. Victor patted his jacket. "Safe, as is our friend in the car." He gestured to a sedan where a figure could be seen in the back seat, Melissa Chen, apparently recaptured despite protective custody. "Let her go," Ava said, stepping forward despite Dominic's warning hand. "She's not part of this." On the contrary, Victor smiled unpleasantly. "She's been part of this from the beginning, haven't you, Melissa?" The woman in the car didn't move. "What do you want?" Dominic asked, though they all knew the answer. "Safe passage. The dissolution of evidence against our organization." And Victor's eyes fixed on Ava, the nurse. "She knows too much." Rain plastered Ava's hair to her face, but she stood tall. "I'm not going anywhere." "Then we have a problem." Victor's hand moved toward his weapon. "Actually," Dominic said calmly, "we have a solution." He placed a metal briefcase on the table. "The complete ledger, all evidence. In exchange for Melissa's freedom and your permanent departure from my city." Victor's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Why would you surrender your advantage?" "Because some things matter more than power." Dominic's gaze flickered to Ava. "Open it." Victor hesitated, then reached for the case. As the lid rose, Ava moved, not backward into safety, but forward toward the car holding Melissa. "Stop her," Victor shouted. But his men were focused on the case, and Dominic's team had their weapons trained on the Russians. Ava reached the car, yanking open the door to find nothing. An empty seat with a wig propped against the headrest. "It's a setup," Victor snarled, reaching for his gun. "No," came a voice from behind Dominic's line. "It's justice." Melissa Chen stepped forward, flanked by FBI agents. "I was never recaptured, Victor. I've been working with them since you threatened my family." As federal agents moved in from both ends of the bridge, the truth crystallized. The trap had been set not by Volkov's men, but by Dominic and Ava. "You played me," Victor growled at Dominic. "No," Dominic glanced at Ava. "She did. I just provided the stage." In the rain-washed aftermath, as Victor and his men were led away in handcuffs, Dominic pulled Ava close. "It's over," he murmured against her hair. "Truly over." Ava looked up at him, rain mingling with tears of relief. "Not over," she corrected. "Just beginning." Spring brought renewal to the city. Cherry blossoms lined the hospital drive, where once Ava had stood abandoned in winter rain. Inside, the pediatric wing hummed with activity. Children laughing, parents relieved, staff moving with confident purpose. "The new security protocols are functioning perfectly," Dr. Winters said, as he and Ava reviewed the quarterly report. "Not a single breach since implementation." "And the foundation funding?" Ava asked, though she already knew the answer. "Unprecedented. The anonymous donor has transformed our capabilities." Dr. Winters smiled. "The Healing Harbor Initiative will support 50 additional surgeries this year alone." Ava nodded, satisfaction warming her chest. Few knew that Healing Harbor was funded entirely by seized assets from Volkov's organization, legitimate now, channeled through Dominic's legal enterprises. Later, she stood on the hospital roof, watching the city spread before her. So much had changed in 6 months. Victor and the remaining lieutenants were serving federal sentences. Melissa Chen had entered witness protection after her testimony secured multiple convictions. The hospital had become a model for medical data security nationwide. And Ava herself had transformed from victim to architect of justice, admiring your kingdom. Dominic's voice came from behind her. She turned, smiling as he approached. He looked different in daylight, on legitimate business. His power contained, but not diminished, like a wolf who chooses not to howl. "Hardly a kingdom," she said as his arms encircled her waist. "Just a hospital doing what it should have been doing all along, protecting children. Your modesty is charming but unnecessary." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You rebuilt this place from the inside out." "We did." Ava leaned into his embrace. "Your resources, my knowledge." Their relationship had evolved gradually, carefully, each step measured, each boundary discussed. Dominic had yielded control in ways that once would have seemed impossible, consulting her on decisions, sharing information freely. Ava had found her voice, speaking truth, even when it challenged his methods. The board approved the cybersecurity scholarship program, she told him. 10 students per year. Full ride through medical informatics degrees. Dylan's legacy transformed. Dominic's expression softened. You've turned destruction into creation. We both have. Ava turned in his arms to face him fully. Your operations are almost entirely legitimate now. Almost. A hint of the wolf showed in his smile. Some transitions take time. As long as we're moving in the right direction. She rose on tiptoes to kiss him. Together, above them, spring clouds parted, bathing the hospital roof in golden afternoon light. The wedding was small, just 12 guests on a private beach, as sunrise painted the horizon in amber and rose. No white gown or traditional vows, just Ava in seafoam silk and Dominic in charcoal gray, exchanging promises as waves lapped at the shore. Not what I imagined, Elena murmured to Dr. Winters as they watched the couple walk hand in hand along the water's edge afterward. When he first brought her to the house that night, soaking wet and terrified. Life rarely follows our expectations, the doctor replied, smiling as Ava laughed at something Dominic whispered in her ear. Sometimes it exceeds them. Their seaside home stood on a cliff overlooking the bay, glass and stone like Dominic's city mansion, but warmer somehow, filled with books and art and spaces designed for peace rather than protection. Security remained, of course. Some habits couldn't be broken, some precautions couldn't be abandoned, but it functioned invisibly, allowing room for normalcy to flourish. In the months since the bridge confrontation, they had built something neither had believed possible. A partnership of equals. Dominic's empire continued its transformation toward legitimacy. The Healing Harbor Initiative expanded to 3 additional hospitals. Ava divided her time between clinical work and security consultation, turning her traumatic experience into a shield for others. On their first morning as husband and wife, they sat on the terrace, watching dawn break over the water. Coffee steam curled between them, comfortable silence wrapping around them like a familiar blanket. Any regrets? Dominic asked, his thumb tracing circles on her wrist. Ava considered the question seriously, as she did all things. About us. About how we found each other. She smiled wryly. I could have done without the gunshots and kidnapping. Fair enough. His laugh was soft, private, a sound few ever heard. Though I maintain that you kidnapped yourself by getting into my car. Semantics. She leaned against his shoulder. What about you? Regrets? Only that I didn't find you sooner. His voice carried the weight of paths not taken. Lives that might have been lived differently. Ava turned his face toward hers, kissing him gently. We found each other exactly when we needed to. Below them, waves crashed against the shore, constant, powerful, eternal. Like the truth they'd built between them. Like the love that had emerged from chaos. Not perfect, not unmarked by the past, but real and theirs, and finally at peace.